people. It's weird. Anyway, I just wanted to do a little video quick. I was watching a video, and I watch a lot of, well, I watch a lot with pastors talking and stuff like that, reading the Torah and stuff. And one of the things that they were talking about today, which is a question that I had for a while, is whether or not women are allowed to preach at church. And the thing about it is that the Apostle Paul, I believe it was the Apostle Paul, specifically stated that women should not be leading churches, leading a congregation. And I watched this man talk about it. You know, he was, I guess he was at a church, or he was at, I'm not really quite sure where it was, but I'm guessing it was a church. But he was like talking about how, and after he said that about Paul, one of the people in the audience shouted and said, "What about the Torah?" And the Torah doesn't specifically talk about that. But one of the things, all right, it's a little bit difficult for me to explain. I'm walking out the door. But the Torah itself doesn't specifically talk about that. However, Paul did teach about that, and he did give an example of a woman who was teaching at a church who they called Jezebel. And she would seduce the members of the congregation. So that leaves the question, why would it only be men that are allowed to preach at the church? Well, when God created man and women, he created man first, and he made women out of man. And he gave us, since we were made first, he gave us authority. Authority over women, authority over the beast of the land, gave us authority over all the green plants and herbs. So men have the authority. So biblically speaking, men should be the ones that are running the church, doing the sermons, and it's a woman's responsibility to serve her husband, basically. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of flack from this topic because it's a little touchy, but it's something I feel like that's important. And I'm going to go a little bit into why I even wanted to talk about this, because there's a point to me talking about this. So the guy said, no, the Torah doesn't technically specifically talk about it, but the prophet Paul talks about it, and he gives an example on why. Now, don't get me wrong, there have been women in positions of power, but it seems like every time those women are in positions of power, it's because the men didn't follow through with their duties. I think one of the examples, I believe there was a Supreme Court justice who was the first, is it Supreme Court or someone in government, and they were like the first woman of it to have that job. And it was all basically because the men were lazy with their job, didn't feel like doing their job correctly. So in return, God sent a woman to fill that seat. You know, it wasn't something that was ideal, but it was something that had to happen because the men weren't doing it. So if the man's not fulfilling his duties and obligations, and no men will, then you might as well send a woman in. But the point is the men should be doing their obligations and their duties, leading the people and stuff like that. And now we get to the point on why I want to talk about this at all. It's because at the end of that video, they disregarded Paul and said nonchalantly, like, well, I don't think there's any reason why a woman can't. Or he said something about, oh, if you don't like a woman preaching and stuff, and you're not comfortable with that church and you can get out, go find a different church. And I was like, geez, man, that's a little much. I'm like, they're like, if you can't be happy with the church, then good luck finding another one. I'm like, are you serious right now? I'm like, if they don't want to be a part of a church that is being taught by a woman, first off, technically, there shouldn't even be a woman teaching. Biblically speaking. It's actually easier to live as a woman. You're less responsible for others. Exactly. And I'm not gonna lie, there are days when I wonder what it would have been like if I was born a woman. Not gonna lie, it's not sounds like the time to leave, yeah. But yeah, like, I'm not trying to hate on women. I'm not hating on women at all. But we need to know our place as a man or as a woman. Women should be taking care of their husband. Just as the man would take care of his wife. But there's more expected of a man compared to a woman. Just like you said, it would be easier to be a woman. That's a part of being a man, is that you have these responsibilities and these obligations and duties. And like I said, the whole reason I'm even talking about that is because it seemed like from that video I watched that they wanted to disregard Paul and make it out to seem like Paul was the one with the issue and the Bible wasn't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Paul lived by the Torah. Maybe not at first, because, he was trying to hunt Jesus for so long and his followers. But after he converted and stuff like that, he made it his life. Now, people are trying to make it out to say that was Paul's opinion. It was his opinion, but does that mean his opinion's wrong? No. There's a reason he said what he said. And I think it's a dangerous territory to believe that the prophets are wrong. Because these are men of God. And if we think the men of God are wrong, God sent, and God basically made these men into the men they became. Well, what does that say? What are we really saying? You know what I mean? If we don't believe them, man, we're in trouble. Because these are some of God's favorite people. And when you don't believe in that, and you're believing in something opposite, you're kind of nonchalantly, in a way, kind of calling him wrong, kind of calling him a liar. Hey, Z Proxy, how's it going, man? But yeah, and we should always listen to what the prophets say. I don't ever want to hear a Christian saying anything along the lines of, oh, well, that was just his personal opinion. I don't want to hear that, because these are men of God. And, you know, if they're men of God, and we know they're men of God, these are men that can be trusted. You know? In fact, those are the only people in the world that we can trust, is people who are undoubtedly of God. And, you know, if I can just go ahead and say one thing, it's just, is you can't, you know, and to be honest, if the prophets followed and lived by the Torah, helped to create the New Testament, if they lived by it, they were Jesus' followers. Jesus is the living Torah. And if they're wrong, you know, that's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? But we're all believers here. We know they're all telling the truth. We know they're not. Because if they were lying, they're not of God. If they were lying the whole time. So, you know, just, I don't really know. I can't really tell you guys what to do or anything, but just don't doubt them. Don't doubt them. They all of them put their lives on the line out there for all of us, and they had to make, I mean, geez, what was it? Paul was burned in a pot of boiling oil for believing in Yeshua. It's ridiculous. John was exiled to the island of Patmos, where he had to live the rest of his life old and alone. Most likely starved to death, because it was an uninhabited island. It was a very hostile island. You know, Stephen was stoned to death for just trying to tell people the truth. So these guys, they went through a lot to try to they went through a lot so we could get where we're at today. You know what I mean? So we have the written, you know, and you know, let's check some of these comments. Okay. But read the Bible, listen. Just the prophet that women have no business leading churches, congregations, have no business leading congregations. There's no way to get around it. Like, people nowadays, like, society, even pastors are guilty of it. They're trying to make light of a. Alright, I'm sorry guys about the service. This area is a country area. It sucks. But anyway, I'm just gonna say, don't pick and choose the Bible. You're either all in on it or not at all. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end this video. I love you all. I hope you guys have a great night. Peace and love, fellas.